I can't lie. My favorite line from Dragon in the comics was...
So I recently rewatched the original Mario movie in preparations for the Super Mario Galaxy movie, and I enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time I watched it. However, one of the main reasons I watched it is because of a problem people seemingly now have with it. That being the use of licensed music. At several points in the movie, licensed music is used in Brooklyn and in the Mushroom Kingdom. But like, who cares? It's really not the end of the world, especially with this movie's score. And plus, who doesn't like licensed music? Are we acting like licensed music is a bad thing now? And plus, the way licensed music was used in the first film fit the scenes they were in. They didn't feel out of place other than the fact that they were licensed music. And as I said, who cares? For the Mario Galaxy movie, I could really care less if there's more or less licensed music in that film, especially since the original music is probably gonna overshadow everything. I feel like all I've been seeing are people bashing the new Mario movie, which kind of hindered my experience going into it, even though I knew I was gonna like it. And yeah, after coming out of it, I like it. And I think the best way to describe this movie is that it doubles down on everything from the first movie, the things that were good and bad about it. But really, nothing of what I just said really matters. I liked the movie, you may or may not like the movie. I can't say whether you'll like the movie or not. All I can say is that I did. I don't even really need to explain why I did. I just liked the movie. Now, I'm probably going to explain it anyway because, well, content. But all I really have to say is, if you like the first one, you're probably going to like this one. You know, I'm not the one who usually goes out to watch movies, but this Backrooms movie genuinely looks good. Apart from a couple odd parts near the beginning of the trailer that I honestly just got used to after rewatching it, this movie genuinely looks incredible. This movie genuinely looks like a Backrooms fan's fantasy. Heck, it genuinely looks like a Liminal Spaces fan's fantasy. Keep in mind, Kane Parsons, the director of this movie, is 20 years old. So the fact that he makes the Liminal Spaces with the classic Backrooms found footage is no small feat. Now, my only slight concern is that with the mix of found footage, I feel like this movie could end up just feeling like a really good YouTube video. But I mean, it would still be a good YouTube video, so it really wouldn't be a complaint. You know, I genuinely might watch this movie. The only movies I really planned on watching was the Super Mario Galaxy movie, and the next Mario movie that came after that. But you know, I might give this movie a chance. Some of these Mario Galaxy movie reviews are insane, and frankly, it's really annoying. Because, okay, some people don't like the movie, but was it really that bad to you that you had to stab yourself with a pen? Like, this guy is acting like he was watching f***ing gore with how he's describing this movie. Like, it's Mario! And then there's this review saying that it's worse than AI, which is just absolutely disrespectful to the people who made it. And I find this really annoying because, yeah, you can criticize something, but I feel like that's all they're doing. And they're not even thinking about the people who this movie was actually made for. So of course, I like the movie, and a bunch of other Mario fans are probably also gonna like the movie. And if you don't like the movie, that's fine. But posting shit like this is just uncalled for. So, they added brain rot skins to Fortnite. And people are responding to it exactly how you think they would. How did we stoop this low? How did we get to a point where we're adding AI skins to Fortnite? Who asked for this? Who wanted this? And what makes it even worse is that it's not even an April Fool's joke. Like if it was, I don't know, would have like softened the blow or something. Nah, it was released on April 3rd with them being dead serious about it. And to think literally the day after that, they released the Phineas and Ferb collab. The duality of this game needs to be studied. You cannot be serious. So Colin the White is back on Twitter, and yeah, he's doing Colin the White things. Now, if you don't know who Colin the White is, he's an extremely racist, sexist, and queerphobic person. He ended up getting terminated on YouTube for, well, you take a guess, and I think he was also terminated off Twitter for a bit, but now he's back, and he hasn't changed a bit. He's still playing this edgy teenager type person like it's 2013. And plus, he's just a dickhead. Like, we got this picture of Ronaldo working out, and he called him fat. Like he wouldn't absolutely pound him to dust. And the one that really gets me is this one about one of the Fortnite devs getting laid off. I don't know exactly who this person was, but he was very important to Fortnite. He was one of the people who made the game the way it is today. And he called him an N-word just for having pronouns in his bio. And like, I know his fans are gonna rush over to this video. They did it to the last video I made about him. They still comment on that video to this day. And I could give less of a shit about that. Because at the end of the day, these are immature assholes who are no older than 13. I have an autistic friend who barks like a dog who's more mature than these people. So at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, especially because it's Twitter. Only people like this go on Twitter. This Doom by Fate situation is complete and utter insanity. Now, I actually already made a video on this, but this new news completely flips the story on its head, so I'm gonna have to run it back. Now, it started when this character called 1X was added to the game. And this character is quite a threat to people who have epilepsy. Be warned that I'm going to show it, but as you can see, it's quite the eyesore. Now, with something like this, you'd assume that the game would have, some kind of epilepsy warning. Well, it didn't. And allegedly what happened from there is that this player known as Kid ended up hopping on, and she had such a violent seizure that she ended up passing away. Now, of course, this is a serious situation. A situation that you really can't joke about. So, of course, some of the people involved ended up joking about it. This XYZ person has such a disregard for human life that it's genuinely infuriating. They see this person as basically nothing. At this point, the whole situation was an absolute clusterfuck. However, Mel, the person who ended up sharing the story, may have been lying. So what happened here is that KreekCraft ended up interviewing Mel to learn more about the story, and the best way I can describe it is how Devon described it. That being that it feels like a 13-year-old's fanfiction. Now, I'm not sure if I want to believe either side until I hear from Kit themselves, but either way, this situation was just absolutely horrid. Because if the story is fake, Mel is a terrible person. But either way, the people in charge of the game are terrible people. So no one ends up winning. The people I end up feeling the most bad for are the people who genuinely had passion into making this game, who ended up in this just absolute mess of a situation. So yeah, that's the Doom by Fate situation. Probably the craziest Roblox situation I have ever experienced. Imagine trying to capitalize on a Geometry Dash level. Well, that's exactly what the YouTuber Wabu did with the level Skeletal Extremigans. Now, if you don't know what this is, Skeletal Extremigans is a $115,000 extension of a Geometry Dash level he made known as Skeletal Shenanigans. And considering that it costs as much as a house in some areas, you'd hope that it would at least be good. Well, I'm sorry, it's not. The shortest way that I can describe why the level is bad is that it just has no direction. It's like if you asked AI to make an extension of Skeletal Shenanigans. And what makes it worse is the monetization. Because what do you mean you're gonna promote these $40 plushes that you have to gamble for in a Geometry Dash level twice? And like, I kind of understand that he has to make his money back, even though no one should be spending that much money on Geometry Dash, but like, there's better ways to do it. You didn't need to do this if you really wanted to make plushies. So yeah, that's Skeletal Shenanigans. The only really good part about it is that before the extension is just Skeletal Shenanigans. And honestly, just play that, and then crash and die and go do something else. I will never understand why Geometry Dash players will willingly put themselves through agonizing torture, aka playing Extreme Demons. Like, can we go back to when Bloodbath was the pinnacle of Geometry Dash levels? Now it's essentially the Extreme Demon tutorial. Like, I don't have a problem with demon levels while I haven't personally beaten one. I know they can be fun, but like, levels like this? What normal person is beating this? And I feel like at a certain point, they're not even fun anymore. Like with the level Heliopolis, when people who have spent over 300,000 attempts call it mentally draining? What does that tell you about the level? Like, imagine having to put a bounty on your own level just to get people to try and play it. And when, or let's be honest, if these levels get verified, who's actually gonna beat them? Essentially, the only enjoyable things about Extreme Demons to normal players are watching other people beat or bot them, which essentially make them glorified auto levels. You ever wanted to play Geometry Dash, but it's only the wave? Yeah, probably not, but I got something for you anyway. So I ended up coming across this game known as Space Wave, and yeah, it's just Geometry Dash if it was only the wave. And like, I guess it's not bad. It does have ads, but like, that's just mobile games. And like, it's free, so you don't gotta pay for like the actual Geometry Dash. And I'm pretty sure it has more wave gameplay than Geometry Dash Lite. But like, just play Geometry Dash. The MacBook Neo is selling well. Perhaps a little too well. Because we're at a point where Apple is literally running out of chips to put in them. If you know a little bit about tech, you probably know that the MacBook Neo has an A18 chip, which is the same chips from the iPhone 16 line. However, Apple doesn't make those chips anymore. They just took leftover chips from that and put it in the MacBook Neo. But now, they're running out of those chips. Like, it's gotten to a point where they're putting 1 per person limits on these computers. Which, I mean, most people really aren't buying 2 of the same computer. Now, I got a MacBook Neo early. However, if you want to get one as well, you should probably do it quick before there just aren't any more of them. I am going to make a video on Pokemon Champions. Mark my words. Usually when I say stuff like that, they usually don't happen, but I don't care. A video about Pokemon Champions is going to be uploaded on this channel. I don't even care what it is about. But on a serious note, I actually want to make a video of me playing 100 matches of Pokemon Champions, even though I kind of suck at Pokemon battling. And also, I'm only really recording this video because I need something to upload for tomorrow, which is today by the time you're seeing it, so yeah. You know, the Pokemon Champions monetization really isn't that bad, but this membership. Why? The things you get from this membership is extra box space, which is probably going to be the main reason people sign up for this, because 1 box space is nowhere near enough, extra battle teams, and some exclusive missions and music, which is a decent selection of benefits. So how much do you think it costs? If you only want it for a month, it's $5, which, you know, is a bit steep, but if you want it for a whole year, it's $50. That seems like a bit much, especially when you consider that the Nintendo Switch Online is $20. Heck, even the expansion stuff is the same price as this, and that gets you way more stuff. And yes, I know it's a free game and it needs to make its money, especially considering that this is like one of the 2 things that you can actually spend real world money on. But still, $50. Would you rather spend $50 on this, or literally anything else? So a Canadian politician has updated the queer acronym, and as a queer person myself, even I think it's a bit too much. Like, we all know about the LGBTQ acronym. I think that's kind of long. Then there's the LGBTQIA acronym, which is also very long. And now there's MMIWG2SLGBTQQIA. Rolls right off the tongue, am I right? And for what they all stand for, well, they stand for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, Two-Spirit, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer, Questioning, Intersex, and Asexual. First of all, the Q stood for both queer and questioning. They didn't need to be 2 Qs. And second of all, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women? What does that have to do with sexuality? I feel like we're losing the plot of what the LGBTQ community even is. And like, even if you wanted to add those things, that's what the plus is for. So unknowingly, the person who made the Godzilla analog horror has announced that he has taken his own life. Now, to me, who doesn't really engage with their channel too much, this kinda came out of nowhere. In fact, to probably everyone, this came out of nowhere. However, the thing is that a bunch of Godzilla fans started to make fun of him and harass him for the series. I don't know when that happened, but Whatever it did, it must have resulted in this. And to those people, are you happy? Do you feel like you've accomplished something? The only silver lining is that this was an attempt. They may still be alive, even though with what I've seen, is an unlikely chance. But either way, whether they're dead or not, this was just unacceptable. So Jacksepticeye has announced that he's working on an animated Bloodborne movie. And I just find this kind of crazy because so many YouTubers are now making films. We got Markiplier with the Iron Lung movie, we got Kane Pixels with the Backrooms movie, The Amazing Digital Circus, which technically won't be a movie but it's still being released in theaters. And that's just all of them that I can name. And it just makes sense. If you're gonna have anyone work on a movie, well, first of all, it should be the person who created the IP, but it should also be people who are really passionate in the IP itself. Like, if we had a YouTuber who was a big fan of Borderlands working on its movie, would have probably made it a whole lot better. So I bought Minecraft on my new MacBook Neo, but there's a bit of a problem with it. Now, I've only ever played Minecraft on console, Nintendo consoles exclusively, so like that's the Wii U, the Nintendo Switch, the 3DS. I think I've played Minecraft on every Nintendo console that it's available on. However, because of that, I've only ever played Bedrock Edition. I got Minecraft on the MacBook just so I could experience Java Edition for the first time. However, because of that, I've grown quite accustomed to playing Minecraft on a controller, and trying to play Minecraft on a Mac keyboard just ain't it. However, for some reason, Minecraft doesn't support controllers, which I find weird for the game owned by Microsoft, the people who made the Xbox. You would think that the one company that would give their games controller support would be the one who straight up makes controllers. Now, I could probably just download a mod that allows me to use a controller, but I don't really want to go through with that, so I'm just gonna have to get used to using the keyboard. So I made a post asking what color the hair should be for my new version of Margarine, and most people have been picking brown. So yeah, sorry about that. But you see, I also asked people to comment other colors that weren't a part of the initial 3. And here's the thing. One of them was me. It was on my school account and I did it just to check the poll. However, one person genuinely did pick this option, and they didn't comment anything. The whole point is that you comment a color that wasn't there that you thought would look good, but you didn't. I'm sorry, I can't read your mind, let alone through a screen. Like, this happens with a lot of my posts. Like, I would ask a genuine question that would get almost no attention, and then I just post something random, and suddenly everyone sees it. I just don't get it. So I was watching the Call Me Maybe music video, and then I realized something that I, and probably you, didn't notice. So of course the whole video is essentially about Carly having a crush on this boy. However, by the end, it's revealed that the boy was actually gay. And of course that's pretty funny. However, for me in particular, it hits far too close to home. Because I've been through essentially the same scenario. I had a crush on this girl, only to then realize that she was lesbian. And yeah, that really sucks. Of course, there's no problem with being lesbian. It just hurts when someone doesn't have the same feelings you have for them, for no fault of your own. However, we're still friends, so, you know, it could have been worse. With his infinite wisdom, Jerry Rig Everything has decided to sell $25 canned water bottles. And believe it or not, it's actually not as stupid as you might think. Though that doesn't mean it's not stupid, because canned water bottles have existed for a very long time. Plus, they are indeed better than plastic water bottles, as they're more recyclable, and they don't leach chemicals into the water. But like, at the same time, you could really just... And of course we have to mention the price. $25 for water bottles. Like, I know YouTuber products are basically always upcharged, but at the same time, as I previously mentioned, he's also selling energy drinks for $35, which feels a little bit more worth it, but this water, yeah, this shouldn't exist. So Jacksepticeye has announced that he's working on an animated Bloodborne movie. And I just find this kind of crazy because so many YouTubers are now making films. We got Markiplier with the Iron Lung movie, we got Kane Pixels with the Backrooms movie, The Amazing Digital Circus, which technically won't be a movie, but it's still being released in theaters. And that's just all of them that I can name. And it just makes sense. If you're gonna have anyone work on a movie, well, first of all, it should be the person who created the IP, but it should also be people who are really passionate in the IP itself. Like, if we had a YouTuber who was a big fan of Borderlands working on its movie, would have probably made it a whole lot better. By the time you're seeing this, I may or may not own Tamagotchi Life Living the Dream. However, by the time I'm recording this, I do not. And a certain aspect about the game has me feeling a bit uncomfortable. So if you don't know, Tamagotchi Life Living the Dream allows you to have all sorts of queer relationships that just weren't really possible in the first game. Which, of course, is a good thing, unless you're me. You may have already seen the video of me talking about this, but in case you haven't, I used to have a crush on this girl, but then I realized that she was lesbian. Though we're still friends, so everything should be a-okay. Right? However, and I'm gonna make this short, the way that I want to play the game and have my Miis act would make it theoretically possible for me and that person to be in a relationship. And I don't know how to feel about that. Of course, I could just change aspects of that to not make that possible. However, I feel like that wouldn't be being true to her or myself. And it's not like I'm not gonna add myself to the game, because, like, it's a life sim. And, like, I could always say no, but, like, I'm depressed enough in the real world. I don't need my me equivalent to be depressed in Tamagotchi Life. But, you know, I still got times, and I have other characters that I would like to add to the game, so I'll just think about that when I get the game. So I'm sure we're all happy with how progressive the new Tamagotchi Life game is. However, it's missing something that I think is very important that should be added. So as you probably know, you can have your Mii's pronouns either be she, her, he, him, or they, them. And they don't have to match their gender, which is pretty nice. However, there's one thing that you can't do, and that's give Mii's multiple sets of pronouns. And as someone who's friends with someone who goes by multiple pronouns, I feel like that's just a bit important. And I also think that it would be kind of cool to add its pronoun to the game, especially for those Mii's that aren't exactly human. Like, you did so much already. Plus, you're Nintendo, so it wouldn't hurt to go a bit further. So another release of PvZ3 has come out. Isn't this like the fourth one? Like, did it start with that weird game in the portrait aspect ratio? Then they had something that kinda resembles PvZ2. Then they copied Fusion. And now they're still copying Fusion. Keep in mind this game has been in development for basically a decade, so you'd assume that at this point, we'd have something definitive and we'd have something good. But still we don't. And it's like, why are we doing this? You have the basis for a good game. Just do what you did for PvZ 1 and 2. And if for some reason you can't do that anymore, talk to the people making the mods. They can somehow make better PvZ games than you can. Like, we're actually living in a timeline where GTA 6 is going to release before PvZ 3. Lock the f*** in. David. He is so screwed. Some more news about the David situation has been released. And holy crap, his life must be a living hell right now. Because first of all, the prison that he's currently being held in is one of the worst prisons in the entire US. I mean, he's in a segregated cell, he has basically nothing, he has to be escorted to the showers. And of course, you cannot feel bad for him even in the slightest. Especially when you hear that one of his cell phones that he had contained quite a lot of CP. Overall, 40 terabytes of probably pretty damning evidence was found about this guy. And while probably not all of it was about CP, even if like a single gigabyte was about it, that's still not a good look. And like, genuine question, how the hell do you have 40 terabytes of anything? I have no idea how anyone could defend this guy. And heck, even if he wasn't responsible for the murder, he sure as hell will be responsible for having the CP. It's insane how Pokopia was seen as such a whatever game when it was first announced, to now being a Game of the Year contender and the highest rated game of the year so far. Now me, alongside everyone who owns a Switch 2, has been playing Pokopia non-stop, and I feel like I'm doing pretty good. But before this, a lot of people, including me, didn't really care about it all too much. And then the reviews came out. Like, I find it really funny that before these reviews, people were like, oh, okay then. And then they saw the reviews and were like, oh, okay then. And it was already crazy when it ended up being the highest reviewed Pokemon game on Metacritic. But not only that, it had also just flat out the highest rated game of the year, tied with Resident Evil Requiem. And if you wanted more, it's really got people out here pondering whether they should get a Switch 2 just for this game. However, to that I say, if you're gonna buy a Switch 2 just to play Pokopia, don't. That would probably end up being a poor financial decision. You really shouldn't buy any console for one game. Buy the console because you want to play games made by that company. I need to ask, are there seriously people out here who are still scared of bees? I mean, like, come on. Bees? Now, don't get me wrong, I know that for some people, bees could seriously put their life at risk. But for normal people, what's wrong with them? They're just bees. Like, you must have not watched those cartoons that show you how to act around bees. Because it's not hard. All you have to do is stay still. And honestly, half the time, you don't even need to do that. And just leave them alone. Like, I passed by a giant one the other day, and it was so chill. Some people would have had a heart attack over that. Now, if they were wasps, on the other hand, valid. Kill them with fire. Hold on, so you're telling me that Xbox changed their logo, and it doesn't actually suck? Many companies have been changing their logos to be more minimalistic, and while some of them work, most of them don't. However, when it comes to Xbox, they were like, you know what, f it, we're going old school. This, you see this? This is how you change your logo. You see, it has some flair to it. It takes some inspiration from the old Xbox logo, while still keeping it kind of minimalistic, but not making it boring. This is without a doubt one of the best logo redesigns in a long while. PlayStation should really learn a thing or two about it. And for Nintendo, well, their logo has basically been the same for the last 5 decades, so they're just doing what they're doing. Okay, so I'm kind of in a panic right now because I was trying to delete some of my old files because if I didn't, Google just wouldn't send me emails. However, in the midst of doing that, I ended up deleting all my pre-recorded videos, so I don't have any more videos left to upload. So, yeah, I gotta lock the f in now. So we all know that Fortnite does collaborations with pretty much anyone, and one person they did a collaboration with was David. You could probably see the problem with that. Considering all the hot water David's in at the current moment, I doubt Fortnite wants any of that. Especially since they're already in hot water themselves. And their way of doing damage control is basically to allow anyone who bought the David cosmetics to refund them without the use of a refund ticket. Or token. I haven't played Fortnite in a long time, I don't remember what they're called. You don't have to refund them if you don't want to. And basically what I think is going to happen is going to be like the Travis Scott situation. Fortnite is never going to bring these cosmetics back again, but you can still keep them if you've already bought them.